Perfection breeds sterility, and sterility breeds decay. Thus the flower knows damnation, and its bud brings irony. Chapter 8, entitled Elegance and Delusion. It may be said that elegance is the flower of perfection, of beauty brought to the point where it can go no further. And yet it must go further, and it does, for anything that flower exists in a cycle that is always going to seed. So if elegance is the flower of beauty, the grotesque is the very root of it. Any concept of perfection that does not take into this consideration will be utterly shallow and foolish, and will lead the believer deeper and deeper into their own delusions. It is the sophisticated mind that appreciates the beauty of the grotesque, and says a mind is never trapped in the flower, in the ideal, in the comfort, or in the need of things to go along precisely as they are supposed to. Such a mind delights in improvisation, and knows that the grotesque is a type of natural humor which makes things unpredictable and therefore interesting. Such a mind knows that nature delights in contrast, and that its beauties are always balanced between elegance and ugliness, so that if the neck of the peacock is the epitome of elegance, it is only natural then that its feet should be delightfully hideous. From the thorn-like beauty of its feet to the irreproachable splendor of its plumage, the peacock represents the whole spectrum of beauty. Of course, there are those that say that the peacock has a voice that is revolting at best, but I must say that for my own part, I have never found it to be anything but exotic. It has always sounded to me like a trumpet of some other world, like certain temple horns that are played during the ceremonies of magic in the high Himalayas. I recognize that there is something very disturbing in its grotesque whine, yet it is precisely because it is disturbing that it is just more than just hideous. It's more stirring of a sound, a cry of arousal and of awakening, and as such it must be accounted beautifully, for it resembles the sudden cry of awareness, and there is nothing more beautiful than this. True beauty is something that breaks us out of our cocoons, that disturbs and arouses us. That is why great art is often despised when it is first presented to the public. People come to expecting a comfortable sensation of pleasure, only to find that it is the disturbed that enter conceptions of things, only to find that it has disturbed their entire concept of things. True beauty has always a certain quality of the unexpected, and it seems to me that it is almost identical to humor in that which both are the joy of perception. Humor is something that breaks us out of our expectation. We expect the story to go one way and suddenly it goes another, veering off unexpectedly. It breaks us off from one line of thinking and into another. It jolts us with its strange twists, and suddenly we are enlightened. In a split second, it has taken us into self-consciousness, and immediately out of it. It has built us up attention only to destroy it with laughter. And in doing so, it has shown us life's greatest secret, which is that which to be broken up, to be filled with joy. Humor is the crack at the end of the line. It is the destruction of all ideology, the joy, the release, the abandon we feel when we have given up every theory and have dealt with the fact itself. Humor is beyond anticipation. It is the realization of what life really is. Humor has a type of circular motion in that it spins around us in altogether different perceptions. It is something that mirrors the very shape and motion of the universe itself. The universe is profoundly ironic. Everything has its reflection, and the reflection is the image of the thing reversed. Hence, that which is true from one point of view may be utterly false from another. The same myth that enlightens one man may spread illusions in the mind of his brother. Indeed, it may even have different effects on the same person at different times in their development. Very often, when we finally grasp the object of our desires, we discover that it is almost the opposite of the thing we had imagined. And therefore, to be wise, it is absolutely necessary to have a deep sense of humor, to expect only the unexpected, to constantly await the strange twist of events. It seems to me that humor is the joy of being broken out of any single point of view and into the place of pure understanding. Humor is the virtue of the enlightened man, of the man who is not caught up in any ideology, but who has a complete free mind. Such a man knows that humor is not only particular to man, but is an essential element of nature itself. Nature has an exuberance that can only be called humor or humorous, for it is constantly twisting itself into strange new endings, constantly transforming itself into unpredictable forms. And indeed, it is only when we have the ability to laugh that one can understand the beauties of nature. Humor is something that breaks us out of our past, that transforms our understanding. It is something that changes our minds even as much as nature changes the body of the chrysalis into the butterfly. It is really the only thing that can bring about a true revolution, for it is the only thing that destroys the old idols without replacing them with new ones. It is the only thing that impresses us greatly without conditioning us at all. Everything else, philosophy, religion, and tradition, they might enlighten us to a point, but it does not do so at the price of conditioning us further. And it does so at the price of conditioning us further, of encapsulating us into some new pattern of behavior and expectation. But humor has no pattern. It is pointless, though indeed it contains the sharpest point of all. It is spontaneous perception, the sheer delight of seeing. It is the one thing that has no purpose or motive. It simply sets us free. Humor is the flower of intelligence, the flower of happiness and insight. It is the greatest of all flowers. In the center of the heart, the flower that embraces death, all things which flower and become to totally opening themselves into the universe, and exist no longer in themselves. So it is that to live richly is to forget oneself completely, to die to all one's hopes and expectations, to completely let go of oneself into the consciousness that is totally new. It is the ecstasy of a flower that may be called the true self, but it is also has a negative aspect in the flowering of the ego. Here we see the ambitious man who has become ruthless in the achievement of his desires. In his mind there is a dream, and his eyes burn with fire, perceiving only that dream. He makes a straight line towards that object of his desires, and thus he misses all the beauty and the beautiful contours of living. He has forgotten that the world is round, an existence and iridescent. He is ignorant to the fact that every extreme negates its own being, and that if you go far enough to the east, you will end up in the west. He is a man who has lost himself not to mystery, but in ignorance, a fanatic and true believer. He is like the revolutionary who believes so much in such mythical flowering of humanity that he will kill it and half of the human race to achieve it. There is no certainty that will lead us to fulfillment, nor any straight path that will lead us to what is truly perfection. The motion of love, like that of the stars, is circular, and the world is round in all of its dimensions, and always singularly irregular, or slightly irregular. The pendulum's path, the only path that will lead us to happiness, is one that flows with every gnarl and turn of living, delighting in every twist and dallying with the moment forever. Such a path is found only in the grotesque and in the humorous, for oddly enough, these are at the very root of perfection. The grotesque is the illusion that has come to know itself, and thus exploding into laughter and understanding. The humorous is the joy of man who has given himself completely unto freedom. Happiness and fulfillment are things that have no image, and therefore cannot be plotted out like the story of a novel. They are like beautiful and beauty and perfection and perfectical, ever mysterious and magical. They are known only to the mind that is in movement, only to the mind that has departed into space.